Today we're making Tave Kosi from Albania. I'm using a recipe from BBC, which I'll link to, and I reduced everything by about 2/3. So first off, we're preheating the oven to 180 Celsius or 356 Fahrenheit. Then we're patting dry about 450 grams or 0.9 pounds of lamb. I'm using lamb chops, thinking that the bones would add some flavor as it simmers. Then we're generously salting the meat and browning it in oil and butter. As it's browning, we're cutting up some fresh oregano in a cup. I like to use this method instead of chopping it with a knife. The recipe calls for dried oregano, but I prefer to use fresh. When the meat is properly browned, we're covering it about halfway with water and adding the oregano and about 2 cloves of garlic, roughly chopped. Then we're letting it simmer for about an hour or until the lamb is tender. I'm choosing not to cover it because I wanted it to reduce quite a bit. Then after about 30 minutes, we're making a roux. I'm melting about 25 grams or 0.8 ounces of butter over medium-high heat in a small pot. Then we're adding about 16 grams or 0.5 ounces of flour and stirring it. Then we're letting it brown for about a minute before taking it off the heat and adding 2 deciliters or 0.84 ounces of Greek yogurt and stirring it well. Then we're putting it back on the stove on low heat and letting it cook for a minute. Then we're taking it off the heat again and adding the beaten eggs. This is 2 small eggs. I was a bit curious to see how the eggs would react to being poured into hot yogurt, but after some ferocious whisking, it seemed to come together as a coherent, gooey liquid. Next, we're adding some salt and pepper to taste. The meat is nice and tender after about 1 hour, and so we're transferring it to a cutting board and separating the meat from the bones and making a nice little pile of diced lamb. After reducing, this broth is just insanely flavorful. It's like concentrated lamb, garlic, oregano, salt. I could eat this just on its own. Anyway, we're pouring it into the yogurt mixture and I'm making sure to get all the bits of garlic in there. Then we're placing the meat in a baking dish along with 20 grams or 0.7 ounces of uncooked rice. Then we're pouring in the yogurt mixture and grating some nutmeg on top. Then we're baking it for about 45 minutes until golden brown. So it's time to plate up and taste. Now this is really good. The consistency is kind of like an omelette, just really savory and tasty. It's like an omelette infused with lamb, butter and garlic. The lamb itself is perfectly tender. I have to admit that I was kind of skeptical about the idea of warm yogurt. It just sounded wrong to me, but I was so wrong. The yogurt adds a really pleasant tartness that balances the richness perfectly. And the golden brown crust on top adds a crunchy contrast to the kind of creamy interior. And I'll definitely be making this again. So I want to thank you, Albania, for having such a delicious and tasty and easy to make national dish. And I'll see you again next time for some Algerian couscous.